Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now, certain items of menswear have always been the things which you can put on, which you know are going to draw those admiring glances from people which you meet. In other words, they are compliment monsters, and they tend to be things which cross the annals of time well, classical items. Now, I've experienced this many times as an intentionally well-dressed man, because I have noticed that there are certain items which always garner compliments, either from people that I meet in the street, people I know quite well, even random strangers will say to me, "That's great," or "That looks wonderful." Now, over the last couple of months, as I've received compliments from people, I've been making a few notes, and I've worked out the items which I wear regularly, which gather the most compliments from the people that I encounter. There's no great surprises here, but these are the 5 items which get me more compliments than anything else. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk about is no surprise, because it's where the rubber meets the road, quite literally. Well-made, good quality leather shoes have always been a benchmark when it comes to a man's style. I know, for instance, that when I meet somebody for the first time, or even an old friend, the first place my eyes tend to go to are the shoes or boots that they're wearing. And what I see facing me makes me actually draw an interpretation of the character of the person I'm meeting. If they've got Crocs on, we know we're not going to spend any time together. If they're wearing nice shoes, but they're not well taken care of, it tells me something about that person's character. So for me, having a good pair of leather shoes which are well maintained is one of those things which I wear, which always get compliments from people. And I can tell you, the next tier up, and it's something I've always done, is I apply a mirror shine to the shoes. Now, when I meet somebody who's got a mirror shine, it definitely levels them up, because I know a few things instinctively. I know this person has learned the skill of applying a mirror shine to their footwear. I know they've got the patience and the knowledge that it takes to sit down and create that look on those shoes. And also, we can draw the inference that this is somebody who really cares about their appearance. And these things really help us understand that person. And I think that's the reason why the shoes are the things which have drawn to me the most compliments over the years. Now, in recent years, the jacket which I have noted, which has always been the compliment creator for me, has been my navy blazer. Now, navy blazers have long been the go-to garment for men who just are not really sure what to wear. You know, you're going to an event, you're not sure whether it's formal, so you don't want to wear a suit and risk being the only person dressed in that way, and you don't want to dress down either. The blazer has become that garment which covers all the options. For good reason, it's often described as the little black dress for men, because women, as you know, when they're not sure what to wear, they'll reach for that favourite little black dress. But for us guys, the navy blazer does the same thing. Either double-breasted, like the one I'm wearing, or maybe single-breasted. It's your own choice. But it just is that garment which allows you to look smart in any situation. In fact, to be honest, you could wear it in place of a suit in pretty much any situation in the modern world, because let's just say what it is, you'd be the best dressed man in the room if you even dressed the way I am for a formal event in this modern era where dressing down has become a race to the bottom for most men. So for me, when I put a blazer on, I feel quite special because I know I've dressed well, and people obviously think I look quite special because those compliments come rolling in. Now, the beauty of a navy blazer is its flexibility. Now, I'm wearing it somewhat formally today with a shirt and tie, but if you remove the tie and I wore, say, chinos, it's quite sort of semi-formal. You could wear it to pretty much any event. Or I have heard that men even wear blue denim trousers, I believe they call them jeans, but I don't own any, to events with a blazer as well. and it's perfectly acceptable. So the blazer, a good catch-all garment which will draw in those compliments with little effort from you. Now the next item, which I think drags most of the compliments that I get in my direction, is my proclivity for wearing a necktie. And let's be honest, the necktie has had a difficult generation just behind it. Because, you know, just 30 years, 20 years ago, you had to wear a tie to be taken seriously in this world. If you were seeking to go up the corporate ladder, or if you were a businessman, you wouldn't dream of going to a meeting with somebody, maybe a potential client, if you weren't dressed properly. And being dressed properly involved a necktie. And in recent years, no longer is the necktie mandatory. In fact, it's kind of been relegated to only the most serious and most formal of situations that most men will encounter in life. And I think that's a tragedy, because the necktie brings so much to a man's outfit. The opportunity to bring colour when there is none. The opportunity to bring texture and pattern. Because most guys, they're either wearing a navy suit or a charcoal grey suit with a white shirt or a light blue shirt. It's bland, it's boring, but the tie brings presence and charisma. And for me, I know that when I wear a necktie, when most people don't these days, I get loads of compliments. And I tell you another thing, a fringe benefit of wearing a necktie when nobody else is bothering is that people make the assumption that you're a person of consequence. I found if I walked around, you know, a city centre dressed like this, I'll have people opening doors for me. I will have people calling me sir when I go into a cafe or a bar, whereas normally they just wouldn't bother, or they might call you buddy. But now, just by the addition of a necktie, it makes me look like a person who's serious. So it does open doors for you, as well as adding some sartorial flair. But for me, a necktie absolutely brings those compliments in that I'm always pleased to receive. Now another item which I find brings the compliments in is actually what I'm wearing now in this winter cool chilly day. It is a classical overcoat, because we live in an era, of course, where now it is function over form. People dress for comfort rather than the appearance that they're cutting in this world, and that actually carries across to their outerwear as well. Parkas, anoraks, these shapeless abominations of nylon, which most men are happy to wear as they go around on a winter's day. I have found that by wearing a classical overcoat, wear just something like this Crombie overcoat made of 100% wool cashmere blend, it is super warm. But more importantly than that, it is super stylish. There is something in men's minds. When they see a man wearing an overcoat, it throws back in their thoughts those images of the men from the golden era of men's style. Cary Grant, people like that, who rocked an overcoat when the weather turned cold, and they absolutely looked the part when they did so. Now the travesty is, of course, that an overcoat, of course, it could be expensive if you bought a new one, but I've accumulated quite a large collection of overcoats, all pre-owned, all for a fraction of their original price. Because people tend not to wear overcoats so much these days, so you can pick them up for pennies on the pound in thrift stores, charity shops, and online retailers like eBay and the like. So for me, when I wear an overcoat, I get compliments from strangers, from friends, and the beauty of it is, it doesn't have to be for formal wear either. You can wear a jumper, a sweater, or anything under your overcoat. It doesn't have to be purely worn with a suit. It's a very flexible item, it's very warm, but more than anything, it grabs those compliments because it is the epitome of cold weather style. Now my final item, which draws in those compliments from people, can you guess what it is? It is a dress hat. A generation ago, a man wouldn't dream of leaving the house without wearing a dress hat. When I say dress hat, I'm wearing a bowler right now. It is my favourite hat, but I could just as easily be wearing a Homburg. I could be wearing a fedora, a trilby, or any one of those hats which we classically think of that men from the golden era of style would often wear in the winter months, or even the summer months. Let's not limit it merely to the winter months. But for me, they've tapered off, right? People no longer wear dress hats. There's loads of reasons for that. Often it's thought of that men, when they started wearing more bouffant hairstyles, putting product in their hair, they chose to stop wearing hats. There's other hypotheses which will suggest that owning cars instead of taking public transport meant that we spend less time standing at bus stations, train stations, so we didn't bother wearing hats when we were going from vehicle to work or work to vehicle and home again. So the reality is hats, for whatever reason, they've died off. But what I can tell you is the impact which I make when I wear this hat particularly is amazing. Now, a few years ago, a friend of mine challenged me. I said I would never wear a bowler hat. And he said, I challenge you to wear a bowler hat every day for 2 weeks and tell me if you haven't changed your opinion. I did that. I bought this hat, paid £20 for it from eBay. It's a new hat, but it's made in China, I believe, but it's 100% wool, and it says handmade, 100% wool, designed in England. 20 quid on eBay. Fits nicely, looks good. I wore this hat in my ordinary daily life for 2 weeks. It was amazing, the impact it made on people. As I strode down the street with confidence, with poise and bearing, I noticed people were looking at me. Sideways glances, people were pointing, people were making comments to those they were walking with, and just because I was wearing a hat. Then I realized something was changing within me. I felt taller, because I'm about 3 or 4 inches taller when I'm wearing this hat. I felt smarter. My back became a little straighter. My chest was pushed out a little bit because the impact of the hat was making me change my demeanor in the world. So there's no reason at all why I should be surprised that many, many people passed compliments about the hat. Nice hat, sir, was something I became accustomed to during that 2-week social experiment. In fact, I enjoyed it so much, I'm thinking about running the same experiment again in the coming year to see if I get different responses from people today. But for me, the dress hat, well, if you want to get compliments from people, just top off your look with a hat and just wait for those things to come rolling in. Now, of course, there are other items which gain compliments, and I'll throw a bonus one in here for you. Cologne. All right, it is said that something like 80% of men don't bother wearing a cologne in the morning, and they don't emit that beautiful, interesting fragrance, which those 20% of us presumably do get when we use a fragrance every day. And I know that when I sit next to somebody on public transport, on the tube in London, and I can smell their fragrance, their cologne, it leaves me with a positive olfactory memory of that individual. It is so much better than smelling of sweat or cooking odours, which you might have brought out from work or the home. A little bit of cologne really draws in those compliments. There is nothing as pleasing as somebody saying to you, wow, you smell wonderful today. Believe me, and you can do that by a couple of squirts of cologne every day. Draws in the compliments. So there we go, folks. None of the things I've suggested today should come as a surprise to you if you, like me, are an intentionally well-dressed man. So, make the difference. Draw those compliments. Just put those items on that you know are going to elicit those responses from the people you meet. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to hear more like this, click subscribe. If you'd like to support the channel, you could buy me a coffee, or even for a tiny monthly sum, you can become one of my patrons, and you'll get the extra videos I make each week, as well as having a personal dialogue with me over on my Patreon pages, which you can find linked in the show notes below. And don't forget, ask me a question about men's style, etiquette, or anything. Uncle Ash is here to help. So, until the next time, put your best foot forward and be amazed by those compliments you receive. And I'll see you again very soon.